Well, good morning. Flint's News Talk, 1470 WFNT. It's Dan Land. Got a real special guest with us this morning, Greg Fay. Greg, how are you, sir?
I'm doing fantastic, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's good to talk to you. I'm sure glad you had some time to spend with us. I saw a post, your cousin Julie, who was talking about her cousin, your brother Chris, who was murdered back in, was it 1988?
Yes, sir. December 12th, 1988.
And were you older brother, younger brother?
Younger by 2 years.
So he's a couple years older than you. I'm sure you look up to him. He's in the military. You ended up in the service as well. Is that correct?
That's correct. I was actually in the service prior to Chris being in the service.
Okay. So why don't you? And you're from Flint originally. Is that correct as well?
Originally, born and raised in Flint. Went to St. Mary's before it was torn down there on the east side, and then went to Powers for 2 years and graduated from Flint Central before I left to go in the military.
Okay. So and the reason this is in the news, I saw this post from your cousin and a picture of your brother. You know, probably his high school graduation picture, handsome guy, you know, probably got the world by the tail then. And I read a little bit about the story and found some other things that had some information about it. He was in Fort Hood, and he was driving cab to earn a little extra money, and he was planning to come home for Christmas. Tell us what happened.
Well, Chris, that's exactly what was taking place. He was trying to earn some extra money, being a lower rank in the military. Obviously wasn't making a killing, and his son was 9 months old, his wife Wendy. Both of them had relocated back to Flint just because he was struggling to make ends meet. He figured he could better support them with them living back in Flint with family support staff.
Right.
And he was driving a cab, and to make extra money, I actually talked to him the morning that he was killed. I talked to him that morning, and I asked him if he was going to be driving taxi cab that night, and he had said no, he wasn't. He had actually just come off a 24-hour shift where he was on guard duty. But he did say that the small family-owned taxi cab company had some Christmas bonuses for them, so he was going to go pick up his Christmas bonus, and then the very next day he was going to be actually taking a bus over to Fort Polk, Louisiana, where I was stationed, and we were going to drive home together to celebrate Christmas with our family.
Man, I just can't imagine. You know, this is what that Christmas was like. I just can't imagine. So, this is a while ago. This is something that's been with you guys. The person who murdered your brother murdered another individual that night, another taxi cab driver, attempted to kill a third. This is just in cold blood for $100. $30 from your brother he stole, and must have been $70 from the next guy.
That's correct. He had actually the night before, December 11th, he had actually robbed. I was at the trial in Fort Hood, Texas, and being able to hear all the testimony, he had actually robbed two convenience stores the evening prior. Actually discharged his firearm in one of those, and but when he woke up the next morning, the morning of December 12th, he basically was disappointed in the amount of money that he had obtained from those two robberies. He was really trying to impress a girlfriend that was from Italy back at the base, and he saw a taxi cab that morning and figured that he would be able to obtain more in robbing taxi cabs. So
I read a little bit about the story too at Wikipedia, and it said that in between the two robberies, he went back and spent some time with this girl, apparently. So I mean, this is just absolute cold blood.
Yeah, he did. After he called for a cab, and Chris was there at the cab stand to pick up his Christmas bonus. And the call came in. There were no other cab drivers available, so Chris volunteered to take that particular cab ride. Taking him up from Killeen, Texas, which is outside of Fort Hood, taking him from Killeen onto the Fort Polk. They talked, Loving talked, in one of the confessions, talked a little bit about their conversation. Chris had let him know that he had a 9-month-old son, that he was going home to Michigan the very next day to celebrate Christmas. So, yeah, he knew what he was doing after he killed Chris. He went into an office and called for another cab to go back down to Killeen, and that's the one that retired Master Sergeant Bobby Charbonneau answered that call, and took him down to Killeen, where he killed him, and then went to a nightclub with his girlfriend. Got thrown out of the nightclub for something. I forget what type of disorderly conduct, but called the third cab. Had the third cab take his girlfriend back to their apartment or wherever they lived.
Mm-hmm.
Once the cab driver dropped her off, he used an excuse of saying he needed to go to a convenience store and pick up some cigarettes. Instructed the cab driver to just take the back way, and they were actually in a neighborhood, and he went to rob the third cab driver. The gun actually misfired and didn't discharge, and the cab driver and him struggled, and he was actually able to get away.
So this is the individual. His name is Dwight Loving.
Yeah, Dwight Jeffrey Loving.
And he's don't imagine it took long. How long did it take him to find this guy? Was it after that third robbery, the attempted robbery? Did they have him right away?
It was within the next 24 hours that they apprehended him, and he pretty much immediately confessed to everything that took place. Both there was a videotape confession which they showed in court, and that's probably where I gained the most background about the step-by-step of what took place.
What?
And there was a written confession that he signed. So the trial wasn't actually much in an effort to determine guilt or innocence. The trial was more so to lay groundwork to make it a capital case.
Right.
The state of Texas actually relinquished control to the military, because with one of the murders taking place in Killeen off base, the state of Texas could have had jurisdiction, but they relinquished control to the military.
Why did they do that?
That's why it was taken.
Why did they do that? What was because was he active duty at the time?
He was, and the thought process was that, and the irony of it is really thick. Thinking that the military would more efficiently handle it, and that they thought they had had a better chance, for lack of a better word. They thought they had a better chance handling it that way. It turns out that when he was found guilty, the appeal process went through the military,
right,
and then actually got sent back down through civilian channels. The Supreme Court would not hear it, as it was presented only through the military. So at about year 5 or 7, it actually got sent back down through civilian channels and started over, and then went through civilian channels, and then went to the Supreme Court. And the defense's effort was to overturn the death penalty, and the Supreme Court upheld it.
Okay. So upheld the effort to overturn the death penalty. They upheld the death penalty.
They upheld the death penalty.
Right.
That's correct.
Okay. So, but because this came through military courts, it needed to be signed off by the president as well. Is that correct?
That is correct. My first memory of when it went in front of the president, it went in front of Bill Clinton, and there was actually a concern that he was going to commute the sentence to life, and we weren't certain if he would make it life without parole. Of course, we didn't want it commuted at all.
Right.
So really, the Judge Advocate General's office kind of put a stall on the case, hoping that it would go in front of the next president, which of course was George W. Bush. and so we become really familiar with it at the point when it was at George W. Bush's desk, because he was going to sign it, and he actually expressed interest in gathering victim impact statements from the family, since we were not able to provide them at the trial back then. Only the criminal could have their side heard as far as why he should not receive the death penalty. Victim impact statements could not be given.
That's because it was in the military courts, or
I'm unfamiliar. I don't know the answer to that question. All I know is that George W. Bush, through the Judge Advocate General's office, expressed interest in potentially meeting with me personally and Mrs. Charbonneau. And then it actually got flipped to he was just going to receive video tape from each of us that indicated, what the victim impact was.
Yeah.
And when he then said he just wanted to move forward with it without victim impact statements, it simply became a matter of getting a process in place to execute someone who's in the military, because the military had not done that since the early 60s.
So, but in the meantime, so throughout all this time, I mean, this is hanging over you, but they're communicating with you. So you've had contact with them. You know what's going on. They're letting you know what they're doing. And did you get a reason why he didn't sign off on the execution?
No, there was a little bit of a scramble at the end of Bush's presidency to get this handled, because there was a concern that President Obama would commute the sentence also.
Yeah.
But then on the campaign trail, when President Obama was campaigning, he had said on a couple of different occasions that he was for the death penalty in cases where the verdict was absolute, where someone had confessed. So really a mad scramble had stopped at that point there, and just hoping, okay, if Bush doesn't get it done because of whatever policy and procedure that had to be developed, we weren't so concerned, because Obama had stated his position there.
So obviously that didn't come to. Did it go dark after that? Did you hear from people regarding the case once President Obama took office?
I received annual updates, and in some cases, when there was flurries of activity here and there, I would get updates as it took place. But at the very least, I would receive updates on an annual basis. So the Judge Advocate General's office out of the Pentagon really did an incredible job of keeping me up to pace on everything that was taking place. So I felt very well informed, and thus that was some of the frustration with the president's decision to commute the sentence.
Well, we'll get to that too. And I want to. Were you pretty much acting as point then for the family on this? Were you pretty much the point of contact on all this?
I was actually. I didn't want neither Chris's son Ryan, or my mom to have to just revisit the emotion that was attached to it. So I was the point of contact, and again, they just did an incredible job of keeping us in the loop.
Well, and I was impressed by. I read your mom's one of your mom's statements as well. And how she handled it was deeply moving. But I'm gonna. Do you have time? Can you hang on? I've got to take a quick break, but I'd like to go into more about the actual what happened, how you found out about the commutation, and some other things as well. If you've got time.
I do, absolutely.
All right, hang on tight. We're talking with Greg Fay. Hang on just a minute, sir. We'll be back with you shortly. Greg Fay, the brother of Chris Fay, who was murdered back in 1988, and his sentence, he was charged with a capital crime. He was convicted of a capital crime, sentenced to death. That was commuted by President Obama, and we're just exploring some of the details with that. Back right after this. Flint's News Talk 1470 WFNT. We are back. Flint's News Talk 1470 WFNT. And I have Greg Fay with me. We've been talking about this commutation of the death sentence for Dwight J. Loving, who murdered Chris Fay, Greg's brother. We also have Ryan Fay on the line with us as well. Ryan, can you hear me?
I sure can.
Beautiful. Greg, we left it just before the break. We were talking a little bit about your mom's reaction to this as well, and I was moved. Your cousin Julie had posted about this after the commutation, and it was kind of a shock, I know. And you guys didn't have any warning ahead of time. How did that happen? Did they get with you at all?
No, actually, it was after the fact that we found out. I got a call last Tuesday, and our contact from the Judge Advocate General's office had asked me if I had heard any updates, and of course I had not. He was fearful maybe that I'd caught wind via the media, and was relieved when I didn't, but said that he just kind of came forward with it and said here, without any notification to us ahead of time, President Obama decided to commute the death sentence of Dwight Jeffrey Loving to life without parole, with no explanation, no reason, and that was it. And
How did that hit you? What were your thoughts when you got that call?
Well, it was really just simply angry, and the thing I didn't understand was why there wasn't any real consideration paid to the family when the Judge Advocate General's office had did such an incredible job over these past 28, going on 29 years. Why the president wouldn't see fit simply to reach out, even his representatives, to reach out and give us a heads up, and maybe give us an opportunity to ask questions at that point there. That was the thing.
Ryan, how did you? What was your reaction? Now, you were 9 months old at the time. Obviously, you didn't have an opportunity to know your dad. I'm sure you've heard a lot about him since then, and through the family and through your uncle and your mother and grandmother and so forth. What has this been something that you've been involved in?
I wouldn't say necessarily involved. My uncle has always kept me up to date on what was happening whenever he would receive updates from the military.
Yeah.
But I feel my reaction when he told me was pretty much the same. It was a little bit of shock, some anger, and I just want to know why. My understanding is most of the cases that were commuted were drug cases, and this was a case of 2 murders in cold blood.
Yes.
And I just don't understand why it happened.
Well, and we've since said, Greg, your buddy writing for LifeZet, he says in his story that this is the only murderer whose sentence was commuted by the president, and I don't know of any others. And you did a little checking as well, and you didn't notice any. So the question really is, it's just why? Why would he get involved in a case like this?
I don't have the answer to that. I know that Larry Myers, the gentleman who wrote the article for LifeZet, speculated and felt that it was simply an effort to appear compassionate, and the fact that the military had not followed through with the execution, and there was no certainty at when and at when it would take place after the process was developed. I like how Larry categorized it. He categorized it as a safe move for him and a move that would make him look compassionate, and that's all good and fine. But I kind of feel like it was at our expense.
Yeah, it's not for the president to be compassionate. I was moved by the compassion of your mother. That's something that moved me. Tell us a little bit about how she ended up dealing with this. That's
an incredible story in and of itself. my mom has led me in my faith and actually led me to recognize Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. And really, even though she shared those beliefs with me my entire life, it wasn't until I saw her role model Christ's behavior by offering forgiveness to someone who did that. When she told me she was going to write the letter, I quite honestly didn't believe her.
Yeah.
After several months had passed, she presented it to me. I read it, and she said, I want you to get this to the mailbox, and I want you to mail this, find out where it goes. And, she said, I feel as if a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. She even followed up.
Yeah.
Called me about a half hour later, and she says, is it in the mail yet? And I said, yeah, I just mailed it about 5 minutes ago. And she says, about 10 minutes ago, I literally felt the weight shift from a small weight being lifted off my shoulders to a 50-pound weight being removed from my shoulders. She said, I'm so happy that I did that.
Yeah. And she sent him a letter forgiving him.
Yeah, absolutely. Offering him absolute forgiveness for him in every way, shape, or form, and did a great job of sharing the impact of what took place, the impact of what happened on her life. So
yeah,
it wasn't a simple letter. It was a very emotion-felt letter that she drafted.
Well, it was powerful. And I read another story. There was a tribute online, and she talked about prior to this having a premonition, I think, or she'd previously been fearful of death, and after this happened, it was gone.
Oh yeah. It was her entire story of this right here is really incredible. It really it's ironic. It's strange in the sense that I called when I got the word that Chris had been killed. I of course called my mom immediately.
Yeah.
But as far as my dad didn't know yet. So when I called my dad's no longer living.
Yeah.
But when I called my dad, I really was just calling my dad to, give some comfort, but also try to have him help arrange for a plane ticket home for me.
Yeah.
And when I called my dad had not been notified yet.
Oh man. So you had to let your dad know. Yeah. Well, again, this is something for the family, to express compassion, and I still don't understand the president. We had I'm gonna go back to Ryan. Ryan, can you hear us? Okay.
I sure can.
Okay.
Now I can.
So yeah, I there's getting some background stuff. I put you on hold just so we could hear the reaction of your grandmother. So, have you ever been in contact with any of the folks? Did you, or you said pretty much you'd left that up to your uncle to Greg too?
Yeah, I've never really had contact with anyone in the military regarding the case.
Yeah.
And I've never tried to contact or wrote a letter to Dwight Loving. I just have kind of relied on my uncle to give me the updates as they come in.
How did so you're 9 months old? Obviously, this is something that your mom, did she slowly kind of introduce you to your dad? Was it something you'd probably? I'm sure she talked to you a lot about this, but you probably didn't get the full story until you were a grown man, I'm guessing. Or do you remember at what point you kind of got the details?
Well, I always, for as long as I can remember, my whole family's always talked about my dad.
Sure.
I don't remember a time when I didn't know that my father had been killed.
Yeah.
I don't think I knew the actual full story of everything that happened until I was about 15 or 16, and that was my grandmother showed me the actual newspaper article from when it had happened, and that was really the first time that I got any kind of real details about what had happened. I knew he had been robbed. I knew that he was driving a taxi cab on base part-time to make extra money.
Yeah.
And I knew that the gentleman that killed him was also private on that base.
Yeah.
But other than that, I didn't really find out the full details until I was probably 15 or 16 years old.
Yeah. And so, I mean, what's your reaction overall to this commutation? Are you angry with the president the way this happened at the last minute, that they didn't reach out?
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Most definitely. I feel as though it was kind of like a big slap in the face.
Yeah.
I'm happy. I'm thankful that he's not getting out.
Yeah.
But I feel that he didn't deserve.
No.
He didn't care about what he did. He did not deserve to have his sentence commuted. I feel as though he deserved to die for what he did.
Yeah. Listen, Ryan, I'm going to let you go. Thank you for joining with us. There's background stuff there, but prayers for you and your family. And how's your mom doing? How is she doing with the situation?
She's very upset. She's talked about contacting the media, and I don't know where she went with that, but I know that she is not happy.
Yeah. Well, listen, it's good to talk to you, and I know your family's doing well, but I just can't imagine what it was like, and but prayers and thoughts with you, and thanks for being with us. Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, Greg, you still there?
I am.
All right, good. So, what at this point is there anything else going forward? I mean, is there? Yeah, is it just it's time to let this go? I mean, are there any? There's nothing you can do at this point. I mean, a commutation, that's it from the president, right? There's no possibility of the civilian courts or anything like that.
No, there's nothing going forward. I tell you, I kind of came to the conclusion, what I shared with you about my mom's faith.
Yeah.
Really, that is going forward. If there's any discussion about this going forward, it is going to be the positive that has come out of it. The fact that my mom, she served as an example for me and everybody who's heard the story.
Yeah.
I've had so many people.
Yeah. Yep. No, it's amazing, Greg. I appreciate it. Hang on the line for me if you would. I've got to take a quick break. We're going to do that, and we'll come back. Flint's News Talk, 1470 WFNT. Back right after this.
Well, winter's here. So
we are back. Flint's News Talk, 1470 WFNT. We're talking with Greg Fay about the commutation of the sentence. His brother, Christopher Fay, murdered back in 1988 in... Was it in Killeen, Texas, or he was in Fort Hood, wasn't he?
Chris's Bobby Charbonneau was killed in Killeen. Was right. Chris's murder was right on base in Fort Hood.
And also, and I'm glad you were able to connect us as well with his son Ryan. Sounds like a fine young man, and I know it's probably hard for him to say, but how is he done? It sounds like he's done all right for himself.
Oh, he's done fantastic. I give his mom a lot of credit. She gave us access to him for all except for a period of time in Ryan's life. My mom and I have had access to him. He's been a huge part of our life as far as vacations. He lived with me as a senior, and his mom called me up and said, hey, you need to be in his life, especially not as a senior. So he lived down here with me. He lives 2 miles from me right now.
Oh, that's great.
He's part owner in NetX Computers. Started there just as a entry-level technician. Back to college, working, works full-time and goes to school in the evenings to get his bachelor's degree. His dad would be incredibly proud. Yeah.
Well, and it's great that he's got that network and that support, and an uncle who's there to share with him what your brother couldn't, and it's just heartbreaking. And you read the story. You read the story about what this individual, and to say that you say that your brother Larry suggests that this is something where the president is trying to be compassionate, but I just don't. How do you single one person out like this?
It's definitely a struggle, especially because really Loving has never shown any remorse whatsoever. At the trial, he showed no remorse. I spoke with attorneys that after the fact, as the case went up the appellate process, I spoke with attorneys that were present with him in court, even up to the highest levels, and just they maintained that there was never any sign of remorse reflected. I thought he had a tremendous opportunity to reply to my mom's letter.
Yeah,
and we definitely left the door open for that to take place. So,
and never.
That's the struggle right there. It really
never heard
is.
from him.
I mean,
he never replied to your mom.
None. Yeah, none. We've heard nothing. Nothing.
So, if you had the opportunity to talk to President Barack Obama now, I mean, what would you share with him?
My mom's story. I'd take the time to tell him that what my mom did for Loving, because again, that's just kind of the message I want to go forward. That if there's any good to come of this right here, I've had people reach out to me after hearing this and say what an example my mom has been. I would share her story. Initially, I would have probably, if you had asked me this a week ago, I would have said, I'd ask him why.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's any reason he could give me.
No.
I'm going to look at the positive going forward and just say that if there's anything good that came out of President Obama's decision, that it gave me an opportunity to share what an example my mom has been.
Listen, I appreciate you taking the time. Very inspiring, and it gets you in the heart. And I just wish you well, and thanks so much for your time, Greg.
Thank you for having interest in it. It really is. I thank you guys a lot, and Flint's my hometown, so people listening to this, I'm certain that you'll have listeners that remember when this took place, because it was quite an event. So, but anyway, thank you very much. I hope that you have a great day, sir.
You too, Greg. Thank you again. Wow, it's that's powerful stuff. I when I saw the story originally, I did a little digging, and it just started as a Facebook post. Greg's cousin Julie had shared in a picture, and it looks like a senior picture of her cousin. He was only 21 at the time, and driving cab, working to get home just before Christmas, and just this cold-blooded murder. And you wonder, how does this come before his desk? I mean, what? I just don't understand how. These things are carefully vetted. I mean, even so, when Bill Clinton pardoned Mark Rich, you think, wow, he's a billionaire. He's a tax cheat. It's like he's going to take some heat for it, but this is a guy who can help him out some. What's the reason for this? I just don't get it. But I understand completely, and I've been looking for it. I can't find it. I'll look for it in the break as well. I'd like to share the tribute from his mother that I found at a memorial site online as well, and I'll look for that and share that when we come back. But it's that's what the family is choosing to focus on. The Fays. We spoke with Greg Fay's brother, murdered in 1988. The murderer, Dwight J. Loving. His sentence just commuted on January 17th, just before President Obama left office. He remains in prison. His sentence commuted from a death sentence to life in prison. And you just look for, you think, what are the redeeming characteristics? What is the reason for doing this? And it's just hard to see. What do you think of this? 743-8255. 743-8255. That's the number to call. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Flint's News Talk, 1470 WFNT. Back. Flint's News Talk, 1470 WFNT. Dan Land here. 743-8255 is the number to call. 743-8255. Interested in your thoughts on the story. We spoke with Greg Fay, and also briefly with Ryan Fay, who was 9 months old at the time his father was murdered. Chris Fay, his murderer, Dwight J. Loving, was commuted on January 17th. His sentence reduced from the death penalty to life in prison without possibility of parole by President Obama before he left office. And I guess you would think that they would reach out to the family too. I mean, you would think that would be part of it. They've been involved. They've been in contact throughout the process. Been involved. Been updated. People have kept them up to date on the status of the case and where things are at. And this has been going on for a long time too, though. I mean, this has been something where the first opportunity, because it was a conviction in military courts, the president has to okay the execution. And President Bill Clinton was the first person to have an opportunity to do that, and they were concerned that he might not, and that he might commute the sentence at that point. So the adjudant's office didn't push for it. With Bush coming into office, they figured they would wait then. Obviously, 9/11, they're busy. There's a lot going on, but it didn't get taken care of then. And Greg said that President Obama, when he was campaigning, made a statement that if there was no question as to the guilt, if it was a confession as it was in this case, he wasn't opposed to the death penalty. So they thought perhaps he would do it. He didn't. They weren't contacted by the president. They did get a call ahead of time from the adjudant's office. He did, that this was coming. So they at least had word before it broke in the press. But it's a difficult thing, and the thing that Greg wants to take away from it, and I applaud him for it. Just the way his mother handled it. So, hi there, Flint's News Talk.
Hey, Dan, I was just listening up on this story. Wow, what a powerful story this is.
Yeah.
This is very, very sad, and I think all the people listening, our hearts go out to these.
Sure.
The brothers and the son.
Yeah.
It's just about I was listening to the whole show, and amazing. I think it's just so amazing the strength that a mom can have, and how she has kept this family together.
Yeah.
With with sending that letter and the forgiveness.
Yeah.
And even though when you look at this private loving, which is the most I don't know, his name doesn't, it says maybe the direction where he should have gone in his life.
Yeah,
but
right.
He ended up, after he killed the son, Chris. After he killed him, he ended up killing that cab driver and shooting him in the back of the head, and then going to a nightclub and partying with his girlfriend.
Right.
And it's just amazing that this guy is a piece of filth.
Yeah.
And that the mom still had it in her heart and had her faith that carried her through all these years. And this is just a testament of the work that Christ is doing in people all around this land still. Whenever you have, a story like this, that's such a heart, a tearjerker. It's amazing.
Thanks, Kuhn. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
It is. It's and it's you can sense the conflict too, because you hear the story. You hear about this guy who committed this murder, who robbed a couple of convenience stores the night before, who for $30 murdered Christopher Fay, shot him in the back of the head, shot him again, and sat there and watched him die, and took the money, and then do the same thing to another guy, ordered him out of the cab, lay down on the street, and killed them both in cold blood for a total of $100, which he took immediately to take his new girlfriend to a nightclub. And then try to do it again to the next guy he's in a cab with, and fail and get caught. No remorse, no response to the letter from the mother. And you think, you just, I want this guy to, you know what I mean? You hear that and you just want this, you just want this guy to pay. And for the mother, though, I mean, letting go of that for her was like a boulder was lifted from her when she knew. And this is what Greg said. She gave him the letter to mail to make sure that it got to the person who'd killed her son, and find out that he'd done it. And she said, I mean, she could feel it when he had. She just felt that it was gone, that it was out, and that's the power of her faith and belief, and that's the thing to take from it. So the other thing, and I read this tribute that she wrote in addition to the letter. It was I don't know if it was the funeral home or what. I can't find it now. But it was some years after as well, and she talked about at the time being afraid and so forth, and obviously when you find out, and afraid of death, and when she found out about her son, obviously you're taken up in that, but eventually she was comforted and found peace in that moment, and her fear was gone. And so, obviously a tremendous tragedy, just a devastating loss for the family, the circumstances with a 9-month-old son trying to get, working hard. He's serving his country. He's driving cab to earn a little extra money to get home. He's going to get on a bus to meet his brother so that they can drive up together. I mean, the whole thing, it's just heartbreaking. And, but to find something good and beautiful in it, that's amazing. And you even say with the president, gosh, that's angering too, but you let those things go, I suppose. That's going to do it for us. Powerful story. Flint's News Talk, 1470 WFNT. Thanks to Greg Fay and Ray Fay for joining us today. We appreciate it.